Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of our 7-star Terra Raid build videos. As of last night, the Pokemon Company announced that the next 7-star raid is right on the horizon, coming at the end of this week at the time of recording and at the time of publishing. So you guys will have this right in time. We've got the 7-star Infernape. Of course, Infernape is normally going to be a fire and fighting type Pokemon, a very, very common typing among starters, as I'm sure many of you have noticed. And its starter type is going to be Rock, which is a little interesting. I wasn't expecting that, but I read somewhere online that it's some reference to Sun Wukong's like backstory, which is what Infernape is loosely based off of. So fair enough, I believe. Sun Wukong, I think that's what it is. I'm 90% sure it was like born from a rock or something, so the Terra rock makes sense there. I don't know, that's just what I've heard, so take that with a grain of salt. Again, it doesn't matter too much for the raid builds, but I thought cool little thing. I thought I'd mention it. Anyway, Infernape is a very, very cool Pokemon. It has a lot of coverage options and has a pretty equal physical and special stat. I think they're identical. Which made building for this Pokemon a little bit interesting. I'm more so expecting it to go for physical, at least primarily a physical attack stat, because it gets a lot of better physical moves and it does special moves. It still gets some decent special moves like Grass Knot, but it gets a lot more physical moves that do a lot of damage like Flare Blitz, as you can see there. With that being said, let's get right into the moves. Again, this is going to be Terra-type Rock. I don't know if I mentioned that, but again, moves. Flare Blitz is a pretty common staple on Infernape. Obviously, getting that Fire-type Stab is pretty good, and it's a very high damage dealing move. I've noticed they like to run Flare Blitz in these physical fire raids, so I'm expecting to see that. And Stone Edge is probably it's probably going to be there as well. Obviously, Terra-type Rock, they want to give it a Rock move. It does get Rock Slide, but I think Stone Edge is going to be the move it goes for. And with the boosted crit ratio that Stone Edge has, I could see them going for one of those fun little sets where this Pokemon tries to crit as often as possible. You can see I mentioned it gets Focus Energy down there, like the honorable move mentions. That is an egg move, so if it doesn't have that, it's, it might be a bit of a rarer move for it to have, so they might not throw it on there, but I could see them going for Focus Energy Stone Edge, so this thing's critting you with every single Stone Edge, and I actually have a build that's focused on that, and it's a kind of fun build. I can't wait to get into that. Close Combat, I feel like we can definitely expect to see as well. I can see it leading with a Close Combat early on, and then clearing stat boosts, or clearing stat drops, so it just gets a free Close Combat off on someone on the team. It could be its like turn 0 move, so definitely be prepared for that. It also gets a lot of coverage options, as you can see with the next 5 moves. We've got Thunder Punch, Acrobatics, Grass Knot, Poison Jab, and Shadow Claw, all of which deal a decent amount of damage and cover a lot of Infernape's weaknesses here. Of course, Grass Knot taking down those ground types and those water types that would take down the Terra type of Rock. It also gets Earthquake, as you can see down there next to Focus Energy, which does hurt some of its counters as well. This Pokemon is actually going to be really difficult to build around. I would honestly recommend maybe waiting for the first round of raids, seeing what this Pokemon runs, and then building some of these sets. I built a set kind of expecting one of each thing. So like there's some sets that expect it to get Acrobatics and not Earthquake. There's some that expect to get Earthquake and not Acrobatics. There's some that expect to get Grass Knot. Like I built some sets for each different situation, because it's kind of hard to build a Pokemon that's concretely really good against this Pokemon because of all its covered options. I think only one of our builds here is like concretely going to be good basically no matter what, and I think even then Infernape gets some decent moves against it. So again, I'd honestly recommend maybe waiting for this Infernape to hit the Terra raids, seeing what it has, and then building from there. But again, that's up to you. If you want to take the risk and build something that you think is fun and just making it work, you should hopefully be fine if you get a good team. So of course, Infernape does get the ability Iron Fist, which boosts I think it's punching moves by, I want to say 30%, which is a pretty big boost. So stuff like Thunder Punch. I think Close Combat might get that boost, but I'm not honestly sure. And then, of course, it gets Blaze as a Fire-type starter. Probably going to see Iron Fist. It's just a better ability. It's going to be, as a pure Rock type, weak to Grass, Steel, Fighting, Ground, and Water. All of which it has something against. So that's kind of interesting. Obviously, Acrobatics beats the Fighting. You've got, Acrobatics also beats the Grass, and same with Flare Blitz, its fire moves. Fighting beats the Steel types. You've got Grass Knot to beat the Ground and Water. Like, this thing has a lot of coverage, and it makes it very difficult to build for. The first round of this Infernape is going to be later on this week from October 4th to October 6th. And the second round of it's going to be October 11th to 13th. Again, you could probably wait to see what it gets like on October 4th, build a Pokemon, and then by October 5th have a Pokemon ready to fight this. But if you want to build ahead, that's fine. just go for it. Nothing's necessarily stopping you. If you get a good team, even a Pokemon that's not an incredible counter should hopefully be fine. And a lot of these counters we built here, hopefully, we'll be able to get the job done. With that being said, let's get right over into our builds. Our first one here, we've got Clodsire, the Poison and Ground Pokemon with Terra-type Ground. You're going to want to give it the Shovel Held item. Now, as I was saying, each of these Pokemon is still kind of weak to one of Infernape's options. This one, of course, being Earthquake. So Infernape is running Earthquake, Quagsire. No, it's not even Quagsire, it's Clodsire. Is going to be a little bit worse, but you might still be able to make it work with a proper team. But again, if Infernape is running Earthquake, this Pokemon might do a little worse. When it comes to its moves, you're going to want to Signal on Earthquake as its main damage output. You're going to give it Curse as its setup option, and then Mud Slap and Chilling Water, which funnily enough are special moves, believe it or not. You need to kind of keep that in mind, that they are special moves, and that Earthquake is not. Like, you're going to be dealing more so damage with Earthquake than anything. Curse is, of course, your setup option. You go for one or two of these once you notice that Infernape's not doing a whole lot of damage to you. Mudslap and Chilling Water will get you to your Terra, which should be Ground, as I think I mentioned before. And Unaware is going to be this Pokemon's best ability. It ignores stat boost, so in case Infernape tries to set up on you with like a Bulk Up or Swords Dance, that'll be a good thing to have. You won't take that boosted damage. When it comes to EVs, I forgot I got a weird spread on this one. You're going to want to do 252 points in HP, 164 in attack, 92 into defense to give it a little bit of extra bulk, just in case this Infernape doesn't run Earthquake. You might be able to live one or two, especially after a Chilling Water. Again, Terra-type Ground is pretty important, and this thing's going to be Adamant Nature. When it comes to IVs, I'm just now remembering I forgot to spec IVs on all these Pokemon, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. The stat numbers are going to be a little off, but I know what they need to be, so don't worry. You're going to want... Everything matters kinda on this Pokemon. Like, you need to worry about everything. Special attack less so. If your special attack's not perfect, that's probably fine, because you're not trying to deal damage with Mudslap or Chilling Water. It's just there to get you your Terra and to nerf, or to debuff, I should say, Infernape. So if you want to get away with saving a bottle cap, you could ignore special attack. Otherwise, a little bit of extra damage from those two moves will never hurt. With that being said, let's move on to our next Pokemon. We've got a bit of a fun one here. One of my favorite Pokemon, believe it or not. Fortunately, it doesn't get too much use in many use cases, so I saw an opportunity here and I built it. We got Palossand. Palossand, of course, being a Ghost and Ground Pokemon. You're going to get the Terra type of Ground and give it the Expert Belt Held item. This Pokemon's going to get the moves Earth Power as its main damage output, Shore Up as its healing option. Shore Up's actually a very good move. I think it heals a third, and if you're in Sandstorm for whatever reason, heals 2/3 of your HP, which is quite a bit. Scorching Sands is this Pokemon's main draw here. If you see, Scorching Sands has a, I think, 30% chance to leave the target with a burn, which will be very useful against Infernape. It'll make it so if it's going for those physical moves, they'll be doing a substantial amount less. And Chilling Water will make that even better. You can go for a Scorching Sands so you get a burn, and while you're doing that, you're building your Terra because it's doing damage. And Chilling Water, once you get there, if it's on the if you get the first burn, just go for some Chilling Waters. You'll start hurting its attack stat even more. You get low, press Shore Up, and then just start spamming Earth Power. So you're going to be able to do quite a bit of damage. Obviously, this Pokemon isn't going to solo Infernape. This is kind of a wall to nerf Infernape, and kind of this Pokemon could stay alive for a hit or two. Obviously, if Infernape gets Shadow Claw or Grass Knot, it'll be a little worse, but that's okay. With the proper team format, you should be fine. And again, just maybe keep an eye out to what Infernape actually runs before you build one of these Pokemon to be sure. This thing is going to be the Modest Nature, which is plus special attack, minus attack. And when it comes to its IVs, or EVs, excuse me, you're going to max out HP, max out special attacks, so it's dealing a whole lot of damage to those Earth Powers and Scorching Sands and Chilling Waters, and then put the last 4 points into defense to take those, like, Shadow Claws a little bit better, maybe those Flare Blitz, or whatever Infernape decides to throw at you. Its ability doesn't really matter here. Its other ability that it gets is Sand Veil, which boosts its evasion in Sandstorm, which could be a little bit good if you have a Sandstorm. But I don't know if that's a great choice for this, because Pokemon in Sandstorm, Rock types, Steel types, and Ground types specifically get I think it's a special defense boost, I want to say. And obviously, Infernape's going to be Terra Rock, so I think it does get that boost. So even though your Shore Up and your Sand Veil would activate, I don't know if that's a great option to go for a Sandstorm team. So realistically, its ability doesn't matter here. You're obviously not going to be hit by a Water move in this Infernape raid, but that's whatever. Again, this thing's going to be Modest Nature, and everything matters except its attack stat, since you're not using that value. I believe I already told you it's EV, so I won't do that again. Terra-type Ground again, so those Earth Powers can start dealing a bit of damage once you get to that Terrestrialization. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we've got a fan favorite here. We've got Garchomp. Garchomp, of course, being a dragon in Ground Pokemon with the Terra-type of Ground. You're going to give it the Shell Bell Held item, so it gets a little bit of healing while it's dealing damage. When it comes to its moves, you got a bit of a fun set here. You got Breaking Swipe to help get your Terra. It obviously, Breaking Swipe does a little bit of damage, but also lowers the opponent's attack stat, which again, I think Infernape is going to be primarily using, which will be very nice. So it's kind of like, it's just Chilling Water, Dragon type Chilling Water. So it'll be very nice to use. You've got Earthquake as its main damage output. Swords Dance if you see an opportunity set up. But I think what you should really do is turn 1, lead with a Dragon Cheer. That boosts the critical hit ratio for your entire team by 1. 2 if they're Dragon types, which, is a pretty big boost there. You're running this the Rough Skin ability, because Infernape does have a lot of contact moves, so dealing a little bit of extra chip damage will be very nice. When it comes to its EVs, you want to max out HP, max out attack, put the last 4 points into defense there. This thing is going to be the Adamant Nature, which is plus attack and minus special attack. Again, with this Pokemon, I'd recommend leading with a Dragon Cheer, building your Terra with Breaking Swipe, and if you see an opportunity, maybe throw in a Swords Dance so you start dealing a whole lot of damage once you can press those Earthquakes. Obviously, Terra type of Ground is going to make those Earthquakes deal super, even more damage. But obviously, you do need to keep in mind that this Pokemon, I'd say out of all of our options, this Pokemon's probably the safest bet. Infernape doesn't get many great things that can deal a whole lot of damage to Garchomp. But if it does run Grass Knot, you do need to keep in mind that when you Terra Ground, you'll start taking super effective damage from that. So be a little bit careful about that. If it is running Grass Knot and its attack stat isn't too low, maybe hold off on Terastallizing until you get a few more Breaking Swipes off, or your team can Chilling Water it or something. Just keep that in mind. Moving on to our next Pokemon. I'd be surprised if you guys don't already have one of these, but we've got Iron Hands. Iron Hands, of course, the fighting and electric Pokemon. You're going to give it the Terra type of fighting. I'd be surprised if you don't already have that already, and you can give it the Scope Lens Held item. This is literally this was my Iron Hand set that I run for just basic raids, so I didn't have to change it at all. So this is probably a pretty easy option. I assume most of you already have this built. Drain Punch can be its main damage output, obviously, so you can get a little bit of healing. Electric Terrain, in case you notice you have a lot of extra Iron Hands on your team, to give them that nice little bit of attack boost. Focus Energy, because with Focus Energy and Scope Lens, you're basically guaranteed crits. And then Belly Drum if you see an opportunity and it's safe. Press that Belly Drum, your +6 attack. It's kind of ridiculous. It's very hard to deal with, especially after a Focus Energy or Electric Terrain as well. Cork Drive is this Pokemon's only ability, so you don't have to worry about that too much. And when it comes to its EVs, you want to max out HP, max out attack, and put the last 4 points into defense there. Terra type of fighting makes those Drain Punches do even more. This Pokemon's not great if Infernape gets Earthquake. Keep that in mind. If you want to save option, probably Garchomp, but you might already have one of these built anyway. Iron Hand's a very, very good raid Pokemon, so, if it doesn't run Earthquake, you've got an Iron Hands in the back, and it'll deal a whole lot of damage. Probably a pretty good option. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we've got Annihilape here, another pretty popular raid Pokemon, although this set's a little bit different because we're not using Rage Fist, its signature move. Annihilape is going to be the fighting and ghost Pokemon with the Terra type of fighting here. You're going to give it the Scope Lens as well. When it comes to moves, Drain Punch is its main damage output. You got Bulk Up, Focus Energy, and Screech for either buffing yourself or debuffing Garchomp there. Bulk Up, of course, boosting your attack and your defense by a stage. Focus Energy boosting your crit ratio, and with Scope Lens, that's almost guaranteed crits. And you've got Screech if you, for whatever reason, want to lower its defense stat, want to lower Infernape's defense stat in case you notice your team has a lot of physical attackers. This will probably be a lot better than bulking up, because obviously then you're nerfing Infernape and everyone kind of gets the -2 on Infernape as opposed to just you getting +1 from bulk up. Defiance can be this thing's ability. I'm not expecting Infernape to run any stat debuffing moves, but in case it does, or maybe it gets like a random drop chance on one of its moves, which I don't know. Do any of these moves have a random drop chance? I'm not sure. Not that I see, not on my list at least. But again, if you get a random drop chance, that'll be pretty nice. You get that +2 from Defiant, which will be pretty cool. When it comes to its EVs, you want to max out HP, max out attack, put the last 4 points into defense. Again, Defiant is a pretty good ability in this Pokemon, but not necessarily required. You can probably run anything, because again, I'm not expecting Infernape to really run any stat debuffing moves. This thing's going to be Adamant Nature. I think I forgot to mention that with Iron Hands as well. Iron Hands is also Adamant, which is plus attack, minus special attack. And when it comes to IVs, I think I forgot to mention IVs for like all of them. for Palossand, I did mention for Palossand. For Garchomp, Iron Hands, and Annihilape, all IVs matter except special attack. Every single one of them is a physical attacker, so it doesn't matter too much. Moving on to our next and final build here, we've got a bit of a fun one. I really want this one to work. I'm not sure it will. We've got Primeape, believe it or not. Obviously, Primeape is the fighting Pokemon with Terra type of fighting. You want to give it the Eviolite Held item so it gets the most out of not being evolved. This Pokemon's going to be running Drain Punch for its damage output, Rain Dance to maybe make it so Infernape's doing a little bit less damage with those fire moves, and Focus Energy and Screech for the same reason that Annihilape has them. What makes this Pokemon more interesting to me than Annihilape is that ability there, Anger Point. Like I mentioned before, Stone Edge has a higher crit ratio, and with a Focus Energy, it's basically guaranteed crits. If you get hit by a critical hit, you're +6 with Primeape here then, and then you can start pressing some pretty powerful Drain Punches. To make up for Primeape's lackluster defenses, obviously you need the Eviolite, and I put quite a bit of investment in defenses, you can see there. You're going to put 252 points in HP, 76 points into attack, and 180 into defense to make sure it can live a hit or two. Just because this Pokemon doesn't get the little bit of defensive boost that it gets from evolving. Eviolite kind of helps balance it out. It'll be moderately bulky, but you do need to kind of keep in mind that, this Pokemon might have a little bit harder time sticking around than Annihilape, so that's why you want to go for Rain Dance, maybe a Defense Shear, a Heal Shear here and there to keep this Pokemon alive. But again, if the Infernape is running Stone Edge Focus Energy, I think this is going to be a pretty cool set. You get that +6 Anger Point boost from a single critical hit, and then your Drain Punch are going to be dealing enough damage to heal you anyway. Like it'll be a pretty cool set if it works. I'm gonna try this Primeape. If it's not the critical hit Infernape, this Primeape's not going to work. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But if it is, hey, that'll be fun. It'll be cool to, throw out a Primeape as opposed to an Annihilape. With that being said, that's all our sets I have built for you guys here today. So thank you guys so much for watching this raid build video. Hope you can see you guys out there in those raid dens starting on the 4th. And again, thank you for watching. Have a good day.